Thank you, Jim Butcher, for sitting down with me at Dragon Con. I'm Emily Whitten from ComicMIx, and we are talking to you about all of your work, but particularly, of course, the Dresden Files, which everyone is really interested in.
Yes.
Now, the last book left us with so many characters with potential storylines that could be the next focus. And my preliminary understanding is the new book is titled Peace Talks.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about how everyone sits down and holds hands and, has a little peace talk. What are we going to be seeing?
For the past several years within the storyline, there's been a lot of unrest in the supernatural world because some lunatic destroyed the Red Court of Vampires, who are one of the major players in the supernatural world.
Of course.
And as a result of that, a power that has been laying low and quiet for a long time has started asserting itself into the vacuum that the Red Court left behind.
And that is the Fomor, right?
Fomor, yeah,
okay.
the Fomor,
yes, who I was wondering about when we were going to see more about what they're doing.
Yeah, who are not just strictly the Fomorians of legend, but who are, the Fomorians got driven back into the sea long ago, and so they've been sort of collecting the refuse from all the other pantheons of bad guys who managed to survive whatever conflicts were going on at that point.
Oh my!
So they've been causing a lot of trouble, and so they're getting everyone together for peace talks. They want to establish themselves, and they've requested a summit.
So they're the instigators of this.
They are,
because so far from what we've seen of them, they're mostly just hostile.
Yes.
So okay, and people are actually like, sure, we'll sit down.
They've been universally hostile, and they sit up and say, let's sit down and talk, and everybody's like, okay, we'll do that.
Interesting.
So of course Harry's going to be involved in it, and just generally speaking, it's going to be a meeting under the Accords of all these different powers and all these different supernatural influences that are coming to Chicago. Harry gets to see that coming. Say, man, I feel bad for whatever city that's going to happen in, because there's nothing could go wrong with that. And it's going to be here. What?
I was going to say, of course, it's good for the storyline for it to be in his town, but on the other hand, you're sitting there going, why would they pick Chicago? I wonder.
Oh, Chicago is one of the great crossroads of the world.
It is. It's a major hub. It is.
For all kinds of travel, for shipping, for railroads, for air. Mm-hmm. So it is. I mean, it is the place in the middle of in the middle of this continent. But anyway, so they're having the meeting there, and I'm sure everything will be fine.
Oh, I'm really bummed that he no longer has his giant map of the city that he built, because that would be really handy in a situation like this. I feel.
Situation like that. It'd be totally awesome.
Perhaps he could be tinkering with another one while everything's going on.
Oh well, he would, but he's busy being a dad.
Well, I was gonna ask you, because at the end of Skin Game we have Maggie, who is so precious, and Mouse, who is so gigantic, and now Harry's kind of seems to be settling into his role. What's going on there? She's with the Carpenters. Is she going to be? What's the new thing?
The way that Harry's going to set it up is he's going to have Maggie he's going to keep Maggie all summer.
Oh.
During the school year, she's going to go to a boarding school in town. St. Mark's Academy for the Gifted and Talented is kind of where the supernatural folks all send their kids. And so my intention is in the next few years I'm going to write kind of a young adult series about Maggie Dresden at the Academy.
That's so exciting.
And so she'll be there with Mouse, because she seriously does have all kinds of problems and issues that are challenges for her. She's got bad social anxiety. She's got several phobias, which are understandable given
I could imagine.
her horrible past.
Sure.
So,
and does she have also some special talents? I would assume, perhaps.
Well, she's got Mouse, who's kind of like the super, the super assistance dog.
Right.
But really, her main talent is that when everything's on fire and people are screaming, she's completely normal. It could be being Harry Dresden's daughter. It's like, oh, chaos. All right, I feel a little more comfortable and secure for some reason.
Right.
So.
That's like the best social anxiety issue. Not really, but like you're like, oh, actually, when things are chaotic, I'm zen.
Exactly.
I'm totally zen.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then the kids all have this pantheon of monsters they have to deal with that you don't remember after you become a grown up.
Oh, wow.
So as the kids kind of age out of school, they forget that they can't interact with the monsters anymore, and they don't remember that they were there. It's just like, oh well, that was a game we played when we were kids.
That is really cool. I love it.
Well, it's fun because there's this culture among children that stays alive that no grown-up attempts to keep alive, but it's still there. Every kid knows the lyrics to Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, Robin Laid an Egg.
Of course.
And there's not a grown-up in the world that would teach their kids those lyrics.
Yeah.
The kids teach it to each other, and they keep it alive kind of in this school setting. It's this own little separate world that the kids are in, and I think that a lot of us as grown-ups, we sort of forget about what that world is like because, we're busy with taxes and bills and stuff.
Well, and I love the way that you, as a writer, see those things and put them into your work. There was a part where you were talking about the power of night, and the Harry, as you through Harry were talking about the power of night, and Harry was saying, go out in the middle of a field somewhere away from the city and sit down. And I was like, I bet you Jim's done that. He has to have done that to describe it that way,
I have.
It's and I love the way you take that stuff and then you put it into, so it's our everyday observations, because at some point we've probably all been out in the middle of nowhere in the dark going, oh, I remember what that feels like. Oh, but I never thought about it like that in terms of magic and like how it works in the Dresden Files and everything. That's really great.
Doing stuff like that is doing things that make you feel emotions is something that is absolutely critical to being a writer, because the hardest thing to do is to get people to feel those emotions when they're reading your work. And if you can make people feel that, then you win. That's the goal.
Yeah, and I think with the Dresden Files, you tap into these shared remembrances that all of us have of different points. We might be all different people, but in our lives, we've probably all been children, or sat in the field, or done whatever, or been really scared, or whatever it was, and you've tapped into that with Harry's character. I love the way you do that. So
that poor guy.
Talking about that poor guy. The thing about Harry is that I love when you write him from other people's perspectives, which I've heard there's a few short stories that are coming out, and I'd love to talk about that. But one of the things I love is he's so much more powerful when you see him from someone else's view. Like when Karen Murphy is describing him and you're like, yeah, I already knew Harry was kind of a badass, but now I'm like, holy crap, he walks into the room and you're like, what?
From the exterior, from the exterior, he looks way different than he does from the interior.
Right.
From his own viewpoint, he's Charlie Brown. I mean,
he's kind of this tall, gangly guy who has kind of bad fashion sense sometimes and is unsure of what's going on sometimes. And then you see him from the outside and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, from the outside, he's huge and weird and can do all these different things that nobody can do. He doesn't make eye contact with anybody.
And will scare you and do. Yeah. And I love the way you've done that, because it would be so easy to just write the hero that everyone wants to be. Like the badass that comes out and it's like, oh, or to marry, or to whatever it would be, or to be best friends with, but Harry is kind of a weird amalgam of a lot of issues. And so I was gonna ask you, it would be really easy to, as you say, Mary Sue him, just like give him more powers and more powers, but instead you've developed him. Are we gonna see further interesting magical developments, and how do you keep that balance?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to see more. The way I like to keep it balanced is the big advantage that I have for the Dresden Files is that I've always planned for there to be an end to the story. Mm-hmm. So I know what the end is going to be like and what I'm going to need him to be able to do the big stuff at the end. Uh-huh. So I've been able to sort of scale him up appropriately as we've gone along.
He's leveling up.
Yeah. And plus, he's been scaling up into new and better villains. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. A higher quality of asshole for him to go up against in a book. So that's what we've been doing all along. So, I mean, that sort of makes it easy when you know what your end target is. That makes it a lot simpler to get it done that way. Mm-hmm, So, I mean, I'm planning on 20, maybe 21 of the case books like we've had so far. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be a big old apocalyptic trilogy at the end.
Right.
And we've still got all kinds of fun stuff to do that I've been looking forward to for 15 years.
Wow.
20 years.
Can you imagine? I can't, but you can, obviously.
Yeah. It's occasionally maddening, so... but we still got professional wrestling and dragons and kaiju and all kinds of cool stuff ahead of us.
So, of course, as you would have. Now, are the Maggie books that you're thinking about going to start coming out before all of that goes through, or are you working in tandem on those things, or are those going to be like after the apocalyptic, etc.?
Hopefully I'll be working in tandem.
Okay.
The advantage of writing a young adult book, and I'm going to be writing them along with my sister, who has had 6 children of her own and kind of knows the child interaction thing better than I do. I only had the one,
right.
So there was no cross conflict going on there.
Sure.
But hopefully that'll be something that we can write, because I mean, she'll be able to come up and visit for 3 weeks, and we'll work on the thing together and just get it done. Because a child's book, a young adult book, you can write it a lot shorter. I mean, you can write it's only about a quarter of a full length novel.
Okay.
Which makes it a project that I can do in a fairly rapid basis, and so that'll be fun for doing it like that.
That's excellent. Now, speaking of other projects, so we've got at least 3 short stories I've heard about. We've got Shadowed Souls. There's a book that's coming out, is that right? And there's going to be a Dresden story. The 2 I've heard or seen talked about is a Butters one and a Molly one. So is one of those in that, or is that even a third?
Shadowed Souls is an anthology of short stories. I actually edited the anthology alongside Carrie, so we put that together, and it's a bunch of different authors throwing in characters from their series and so on. So it'll be a really good sampler for if you like this author, you might enjoy something by this author, and
right?
So you can read it and see. But that's the one that's got the Molly short story. It's got Molly's first mission as the Winter Lady, and you get to find out what her job actually is, and it's not nice.
Because we don't get as much. She can't tell Harry about everything, and so we don't get as much of that.
Exactly.
And I would love to see it.
She's stuck in this. She's got operational security she has to worry about now.
Right.
And so she doesn't tell Harry everything, and there's all these things she's hiding from him, and different things that are now available to her. And different pressure she has to deal with as the Winter Lady, and I mean,
you could literally write a whole other series about the view from her.
Yeah, there's a reason that her predecessor Maeve was completely bug nuts. I mean, it's once you get into and once she's getting into it, she's like, oh, like that. So. But that's what she's facing, so we get to see her doing that.
That's exciting. I love Molly, so I'm looking forward to that.
She's such a fun character to write, because in many ways, as the Winter Lady, she's in a place where she's very comfortable, because as the eldest daughter in a large family, it was essentially it was her job to be deputy mom and wrangle all the little brothers and sisters.
Right.
And that's what she's doing now. But at the same time, she's got Maeve as the mother figure now instead of Charity, and Molly has issues with authority figures, so you get to see some of that conflict. So but anyway, it's fun to write. It's fun. I love writing the stories from the perspective of the different characters, because they all see the world so differently.
Right.
And the Dresden Files world changes completely based on whose eyes you're looking through to see it.
Oh yeah, no, I love the one where it was Karen who was telling the story. So is there a Butters one coming out? That was the other one.
Butters' first mission as the Winter Knight is.
Oh, you mean as the?
Or excuse me, as a Knight of the Cross.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is very exciting. Thank you. So, okay, tell us. We're running out of time. Tell us a tiny bit about what do we see in his first mission? What's his first challenge?
He's out doing cardio with Michael. Michael, he's doing the Rocky thing. He's doing his training montage, and he's in the middle of his training montage, and he kind of trips over a trash. He sees something, trips over a trash can, and Michael's like, "What's wrong?" And Butters looks at him and says, "You don't see that?" And Michael's like, "See what?" He said, "That bum on the bench over there. There's a big yellow exclamation point floating over him." And Michael's like, "No, I don't see that." And Butter gets beyond. I'm not crazy. My mother had me tested. Michael's like, "Well, what does that mean to you?" And Butter says, "Well, that's what you see, and that's what you see over an NPC in an MMORPG. Anytime there's a quest that you need to go."
I love it. So he sees it because we've got the sword already as Star Wars. It's a lightsaber, and so he's seeing everything.
It's coming up as an MMORPG quest for him, and Michael's like, "You used a lot of letters there, and I did not understand anything you said, but it sounds like that's what the quest is."
Oh man!
And Butters is like, "God speaks video game," and Michael's like, "God speaks whatever it is you understand." So maybe you should go talk to that guy, and that's where it gets started. And then he winds up in all kinds of trouble after that.
That is so great. Okay, so in our very last minute, I'm going to go through a few characters. Please tell me if we're going to see any significant development of them in the new book.
Okay.
Thomas and Justine.
Yes.
Okay. because there was the whole Justine is pregnant tweet. Were you
Yes.
kidding? Were you trolling? Was it real?
No, that's the first sentence of the book.
Oh, right. Okay.
Thomas
so
said Justine is pregnant.
okay, and so speaking of Harry and family, do we hear anything more about his mother and her background, or is that something that comes up?
Probably not a lot in this one.
Okay. What about Demon Reach? Is Harry still living there when Maggie lives with him, or has he moved back into Chicago? Do we see more of Demon Reach?
He's living with the Svart elves in Maggie's apartment.
Oh,
Excuse me,
okay.
in Molly's apartment.
In Molly's apartment.
So he's Molly's vassal. So Molly said he gets to go there, and the Svart elves are like, yeah, fine.
and they're okay with that.
Well, and they like Maggie and Mouse.
Oh, well, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? So
yeah,
what
exactly.
about, what
Mouse
about
has got better people skills than Dresden does. My God.
Of course. So what about Uriel and the other angels and different figures that we've seen in the last book? Do they come into this one, or are they taking a backseat to the?
They won't be as involved in this one.
Okay.
I mean, the angels can only get so involved in things that are going on because there's this whole issue of human free will. So
right. Yeah. So now Harry's family again, sort of technically, the spirit of intellect, whose name is.
He is calling her Bonea.
Bonea. Okay.
Because the word bone is in the word bone is in the name. So and Harry's not got a sophisticated sense of humor, but or Bonea or Bonnie, and Bonnie is learning. She's got enormous amounts of information at her disposal and no perspective on how it works in the actual world.
Oh my goodness!
So yeah, it's the most ridiculous character. I'm having a lot of fun writing.
Oh, I'm excited about that. So we've talked about a bunch. I wish I had more time. One final thing you would like people to know about the book, what would it be?
I'm working on it.
With the perfect face for that.
Yeah.
And it will be out. Is there a release date yet, or are we?
No, there isn't. They want me to finish writing it first.
Okay, it will be out when Jim is done writing it. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.